Did you know that Thorkell the Tall was real, and he really was a giant amongst men, and he really was a legendary warrior, and he was one of the deciding factors in Canute becoming the king of England, and he was, even more than in the anime, the legendary leader of the Joms Viking warriors. His story is insane and could warrant a whole manga or anime on its own. But let's start at the beginning of Thorkell the Tall's story. We know nothing about Thorkell the Tall as a child. Nothing. But we do know that adult Thorkell the Tall did really join the legendary Joms Viking warriors, just like is his past in the anime. In history though, he not only joined the legendary Joms Viking warriors, he even became their leader. Why? How? Well, as I just said, he really was a giant amongst men. The saga is quoted as saying he was taller than the tallest of men, and he was equally as strong. You see, the Joms Viking warriors had feats of strength required to join them. It didn't require you to throw logs like they're nothing, but picking up a massive rock like Thorkell does in the anime, yeah, that was actually one of the feats of strength necessary to join this legendary order of warriors that Thorkell became the leader of. And just like in the anime, King Sweyn enlisted the help of the Joms Viking warriors when he invaded England. It's just in history, the leader of that order was Thorkell, and he took over from Sigvaldi. But I should note that in real history, Sigvaldi was definitely not Thorkell's older brother. And invading England was going well. They carved out a lot of territory, but it's just that while they were there, they captured an archbishop, and he was worth a lot of money. It's just the problem is, while he was in captivity with the Joms Viking warriors, he persuaded a lot of these mighty warriors of Christianity and put these thoughts in their head. Side note, it could well be that the priest in the anime, Willibald, preaching love and getting into the heads of Askeladd's men, was inspired by that archbishop. And it's said that Thorkell simply lost control of his men, so eventually he took 25 ships and about 500 plus men. You know, in the anime he's described as having 500 strong warriors. That's not a coincidence. He took those men and he took those ships and he said, screw it, I'm no longer fighting for Denmark and King Sweyn. I'm gonna join England and fight for Ethelred the Unready. And this is where we meet Thorkell the Tall in the anime. He's fighting for England, he's holding down the bridge that leads to London, he's throwing the logs and all that, fighting against King Sweyn. And this is of course exaggerated, but yeah, it's true, he did fight for England until King Sweyn and Canute were victorious and they took over England, and King Sweyn was crowned the king of England, while Ethelred the Unready, the former king, was sent into exile. Now, in real history, King Sweyn's reign as the king of England only lasted for about 5 weeks, at which point he died and Ethelred came back to assume the throne of England again. And this is where history kind of draws a blank, because Thorkell the Tall at this point kind of went over to the Danish side and helped Sweyn Forkbeard's son, Canute, conquer England all over again. How? History has no idea, and I sure would love an explanation as to how you go from fighting against the dad to then fighting for the son and taking over the land that you just defended. Was it just money? I don't know what it was, but interestingly here, Yukimura is a genius, because in the anime, Vinland Saga does fill in that gap and kind of shows us how Thorkell went from fighting against King Sweyn to fighting for Canute. So him fighting for England and Denmark, that's absolutely historically accurate. And in fact, Vinland Saga gives us the best explanation as how this was possible. Eventually, Thorkell and Canute were victorious, and Canute became the king of England and now had this massive territory that he divided into 4 earldoms. And as a reward to Thorkell for being by his side the entire time, and for him and his Joms Vikings to be so crucial in this battle, I mean, don't forget how legendary and strong these warriors were, he made Thorkell the Jarl of East Anglia. But shortly after, him and Canute had a massive falling out and Thorkell was exiled to Denmark. How? History doesn't explain it any further than that, but yeah, we do know that he was exiled in Denmark. The bigger question mark comes next, because Canute then made Thorkell the Jarl of Denmark. How do you go from exiling him to then making him the Jarl in the country you just exiled him to? And actually rewind, how do you go from siding with the guy that was fighting against your dad? I don't know. I don't know where Vinland Saga, the anime and or manga, will pick up here and how they will explain this. But yes, Thorkell the Tall was then the Jarl of Denmark, and more than that, he became a guardian, custodian for Canute's son. He was basically the foster father to Canute's son. That's huge. That's a lot of trust for a guy that, again, fought against your dad and then you exiled to Denmark. Maybe it was because Thorkell the Tall was such a great warrior and had even more sway in Denmark, with the Jom's Vikings being so legendary there. Who knows? What we do know is that in 1023, Thorkell disappeared from history. From a Jarl of Denmark to just being gone from the history books. What happened? Did he die? Did he retire? Did he just decide to live a normal, quiet, insignificant life? Was he tired of all the fighting, the fame, the riches, and the position? We don't know, but Thorkell the Tall sure had a fascinating life, as I said, worthy of a manga or anime of its own. And if you find this stuff fascinating, then please do consider hitting that follow button, because I do these mythological, historical backgrounds for anime every single day. And if you subscribe, you won't miss out. And if you follow, then I'll see you tomorrow. All right, cool. Thanks.